Okay, I got 5:30. Call this meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for coming tonight. We've got some city licenses listed there for publication. I'm not going to read through them. We have 2 appointments upcoming, one on the Planning Commission, Board of Zoning Appeals. That's an outside city position. And one for the Library Board of Trustees. And those are both, applications for both positions are due October 21st. So love to have you consider those. Adoption of the consent agenda. Gentlemen, anything there you want to talk about?
No, I don't.
All right. Good. You're good? All right. I move that we approve the adoption of the consent agenda as listed.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Item F is presentation of city audit. You're on. You thought you were going to have more time to sit and think about it, didn't you?
Yeah. So for those of you who have any bound packets in front of you, we are going over the one that's just audit report. It's the larger packet.
Could you speak into the microphone?
Sure. Is that better?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, my name is Ashley Newland, and this is David Schwenker. We are with Yerkes and Michelle's from here in Independence, and we have been doing the audit for the City of Independence now, I believe, for 6 years. And this is the audit presentation for the year ending December 31st, 2015. And our audit covered the statement of regulatory basis and receipts, expenditures, and unencumbered cash for the City of Independence. First page of the audit report basically states management's responsibilities, and that's that you guys are responsible for the financial statements, and you're also responsible for designing and implementing internal controls. Our responsibility is to audit the financial statements in accordance with government or generally accepted auditing standards, as well as the standards through KMAG. I am not going to read this word for word. So I'm going to try to summarize what I can. If anybody has questions, please stop me along the way if you need to, or afterwards is fine as well. In the opinion section, it gets a little hairy just because of the way that it's worded. It says there's an adverse opinion on GAAP basis, but that's because you don't prepare your financials accordance with GAAP. But you do have an unmodified opinion in regards to the regulatory basis, which is how you do prepare your financial statements, and that's set forth through KMAG, the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide. And an unmodified opinion is the good one. In other matters, the supplementary information just basically states that we're also opining on those additional schedules that are at the back of the packet, which is the detailed information in regards to the individual funds and then that activity in comparison to your legal budget. And then it also states that our opinion is the same on the supplementary information as well. It goes on to also say that there will be an additional audit report towards the back that meets the government auditing standards, and that's in regards to your internal controls over financial reporting. So we'll cover that when we get to it. And Dave is going to cover pretty much everything in there that's numbers. So I'll let him take over here.
Jim, the bound book, is it the same one?
Yep.
That was, okay. I had already printed, so.
Yeah, there should not be anything changed.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioner Meyer can rest easy. I'm not going to talk about his golf game.
We appreciate that.
Okay. On page 1 and 2, this is a list of all of your funds with the beginning unencumbered cash balance. In the first column shows your cash receipts and expenditures, and then your ending unencumbered cash balance. And then the encumbrances are what you have approved for but had not paid yet at the end of 2015. which the last column is your ending cash balance, if those bills would have been paid. Now, page 3 is a list of your bank accounts and your CDs, and that number should agree with the bottom of page 2, your total ending cash balance, which it does. And now Ashley will go over the notes.
Okay, starting on page 7 in your packet is the notes to the financial statement. Note 1 is the financial reporting entity. It simply describes the City of Independence, how many people are on your council, and then it talks about your what are referred to as component units under GAAP, but for you guys, they're related municipal entities, and that's the Independence Housing Authority and the Independence Library District, which are included in your audit report here. Note 1B is the basis of presentation, and as I discussed, you don't present your audit or your books on the GAAP basis, but instead regulatory basis, which simply means you recognize revenue when you receive it, not when you earn it. So you have no accounts receivable. You also have no fixed assets on your books. Everything is expensed as you go. The only difference between this and cash basis is that you also recognize encumbrances, which includes accounts payable, and encumbrances, which would be things that you guys approve at the end of the year, and like you said, you had not yet paid. Note 1C goes into the different fund types and what is basically the definition for each of those different types of funds. 1D is reimbursements, and it just tells you how those are accounted for in your books. Note 1E is jointly governed organizations, and that points to the Independence Recreation Commission and the Montgomery County Action Council. You don't have control over the board, though, or financial responsibility for those organizations. It's just that you appoint 2 members of the board. Note 2 is stewardship, compliance, and accountability, and a lot of this information is the exact same wording that you get every single year. So the first piece of it is just the rules in terms of how you adopt a budget and the dates that those different pieces are due. And then it continues on to the next page. Note 2B is compliance with finance-related legal and contractual matters. And it does state that the water and sewer fund exceeded budget by approximately $608,000, and the expenditures in the airport fund exceeded the amount budgeted by $16,000. And then it states the statute that's in violation of. And then that management is not aware of any other violations of compliance with Kansas statutes or other finance-related legal matters. Note 3 is deposits and investments, and as of December 31st, 2015, the city had no investments as defined by KMAG, and then it goes through the different statutes that allow you to invest your money or how you can put them in a bank and what kind of banks, and all those specific rules. And down towards the bottom of the page, it states that your carrying amount of deposits, which was approximately $16 million at the time, and it breaks it down between the housing authority and agency funds, and then how much was actually in the bank, the difference being outstanding checks or deposits and transits. All of those funds were either covered by FDIC insurance or they were collateralized by pledged securities held by the financial institution, so all of your funds were secure. Same thing, I'm sorry, the next paragraph is for the Independence Public Library's deposits, and they were entirely covered by FDIC insurance. Note 4 we'll actually get to after the rest of these notes, and that's on your long-term debt. Note 5 is your defined benefit pension plan, which for you guys is CAPERS, and this has some specific information on CAPERS and how it works, and the Kansas statutes that set that up, as well as the contribution percentages. And this is a new piece of this note this year. This number is determined by the state of Kansas, their actuaries, and everything else that goes into CAPERS. This number had nothing to do with you guys. We have to look it up online, and it's required to be placed in your audit report. So it does state that you have contributions to the plan of about $450,000. And then it goes on to say that your portion of the collective net pension liability is about $3.5 million. But again, that's the state CAPERS plan that you guys just contribute to. So that's based on some new accounting standards that have come down, that they've made those changes. Note 6 is your capital projects, and it lists each of your different capital projects, how much was authorized, and then how much has been expended as of December 31st, 2015, and that includes encumbrances on each of those various projects. Note 7 is your compensated absences, and this simply defines the way that you guys provide compensated absence reimbursement for your employees, like how they accrue vacation, sick pay, and whether or not you're liable for that if they were to leave. And then you don't recognize those liabilities at the end of the year. That you do recognize those liabilities at the end of the year. Note 8 is your other post-employment benefits. And for you guys, that's primarily just COBRA, which is established by law. You have to have COBRA benefits for employees that leave. Note 9 is your risk management, and it states that you guys have commercial insurance coverage, and none of your claims have exceeded that coverage over the past 3 fiscal years. Note 10 is your interfund transfers, and it states which funds you moved money out of and then into and how much those were, and then, if necessary, the particular statute that allowed you to do so. Note 11 is use of estimates, and for the most part for you guys, what is estimated is encumbrances because, for instance, at the end of the year, you might authorize to spend $1 million on the project, and the project may come in at $988,000. So there is an estimated portion of encumbrances, and it's just stating that that's there. And note 12 is your flexible benefit plan, and this is your IRC Section 125 plan. Some people refer to that as a cafeteria plan. Note 13 is the real estate donation, and that's the donation where the city received the Mercy Hospital building. And note 14, subsequent event, and this is the move from the old City Hall building into the hospital building. As subsequent events are anything that happened from the date that the audit goes through, which is December 31st, 2015, to the date that the audit report is actually dated, and anything that's considered material must be disclosed. So I'll let Dave go on to cover the remaining amount, which is the long-term debt, and then also the supplementary schedules.
Okay, if you look on page 17, this is a list of all of your general obligation bonds and your capital leases, as well as other loans out there from like the Department of Health and Environment. It shows the beginning balance at the first of the year, any additions or new loans or bonds, the reductions in payments of those, and the balance at the end of the year, as well as the amount of interest paid. And that continues on to page 18. This kind of gives out, breaks it out into the next 5 years, what your payments will be on those general obligation bonds and notes. And then it's broken out on the last 3 columns into 5-year increments. Kind of gives you an idea of what you got left to pay. Page 19. This is expenditures compared to your budget and whether or not you went over or under. And as you can see, it shows the airport and water and sewer fund under the business funds. That went over budget. On page 20 through 79, these are the different funds that you have, and they're just broken down into a more detail. They match up with the first 2 and 3 pages of your report, the total-wise. On page 80, these are your agency funds, which is your fire insurance proceeds and your alcohol assessment fund. Page 81 shows the public library general fund. And on page 82, this is your housing authority. Basically, is what these are all the different funds within the housing authority.
All right, so moving into page 83, it's a different section of the audit. So for you guys and for any governmental or nonprofit entity that expends It used to be $500,000. It's now $750,000. You're required to have what's called a single audit, and that throws you into a lot more compliance audit portion of it. So we look at your federal money and then go through some different steps and determine which one or sometimes multiple grants that we're going to look at very in depth and compare that with specific compliance requirements. During that process, we also look at internal controls over compliance, which instead of just saying you have internal controls over financial reporting, which might, as an example, would say 2 people signing checks. Internal controls over compliance would be that somebody says, yes, we can spend this grant money for this, and somebody is reviewing that process is actually happening. So you're looking at it from more of a compliance standpoint as opposed to a financial standpoint. So that the rest of this audit packet is going to be over the federal section. So the first one is your schedule of expenditures of federal awards. It is exactly what it says it is. It says all of your different federal awards and how much you expended on them. It gives some different codes and pass-through identifying numbers. Those are all required by granting agencies. Your total federal expenditures was just over $1.3 million, and that's made up of TBER grants, emergency shelter grants, community development block grants, or CDBG, and your airport improvement fund grants. Page 84 starts the notes to the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. The basis of presentation is that it's in regulatory basis, same as your financials, except that some of the awards on the schedule are actually presented at the time the activity occurs, because if you encumbered the whole project in 1 year, but you do all the activity the next year for the single audit purposes, there's no activity to audit. So sometimes that schedule of expenditures of federal awards differs a little bit. Note 2 is summary of significant accounting policies. The main thing in here that's changed this year is that you guys did not elect to use this 10% de minimis indirect cost rate. That's under some of the new compliance requirements, and instead you use cost rates that were stated in your grant, your actual grant awards. Note 3 goes in, and what this is basically doing is reconciling the amount that is recognized in your financial statement in the current year to what's actually on this schedule of expenditures of federal awards. So what it's taking is the year that you may have expended it in your financials, but versus the year that you did the actual activity. So it's just going through and breaking those numbers down. Page 88 is one of the next 2 audit reports also. This one is a report over internal controls over financial reporting and compliance with that. So that is the internal controls over the financial piece of it. And essentially, when you come down, we have one finding, and I will go into that. We have a specific schedule for the different findings on internal controls over financial reporting that's considered to be a significant deficiency, not a material weakness. And then also goes in to state that there is a finding in the compliance and other matters, and that is in regards to being over budget, an amount that we consider to be material, but we still just consider that to be a significant deficiency. Otherwise, we actually don't provide an opinion over your internal controls. We just basically look through it and see, and we utilize that to determine how much we're going to test for the financial audit portion of it without going into it any further. On page 90 starts the report on compliance for each major federal program. So this one is just for the program that was considered major for the current year, which for you guys was the airport improvement grant. And as you can see through here, there were actually no findings in regards to the federal awards and no findings in your internal controls over compliance with regards to the major program on the federal awards. So you also have an unmodified opinion on compliance, which again is the good opinion. Page 92 starts the schedule of findings and question cost. And so we had a material weakness and a significant deficiency, but then we had no noncompliance or significant deficiencies in the federal award portion of it. To explain that further, starts on the next page, finding 215.01 basically states that you guys did not have enough of a system of internal controls over encumbrances at the end of the year to make sure that all of those were picked up. And that is why those funds ended up going over budget. And so that we considered to be a material weakness because it was a material amount that was affected by that. And on page 94, at the very end of that particular finding is the view of responsible officials and working to create a new system. A lot of that problem occurred because of, we think it's the setup in the computer system and in terms of how encumbrances roll over and actually hit the books from the time that they're entered. So they're working to fix that problem as well as create a system to make sure all of those gets picked up. Finding 215-02 has to do with the schedule of expenditures of federal awards and just making sure that there is a stronger system in internal controls, since you guys are actually the ones that have to prepare that particular schedule. And then that internal control process has to be written, and that is in regards to the new administrative requirements. View of responsible officials is primarily that system will be developed and that it will be written for next year. Finding 215-03 is that you had, this one is over compliance on the financial side, not the federal side, and that's the two funds that were over budget. And they are working to correct the issue in the system as well as just making sure that some of that understanding has been kind of changed and updated. So this has already been something that they have been in the process of working to correct and to address since we started the audit, and this was realized that this had happened. So this is already in the works for you guys. We do not audit your responses to those findings. Page 97 is that there were no findings in the prior year, nor has there been any unresolved findings from the prior years. And then page 98 is simply your guys' actual corrective action plan, which was reflected already in the view from responsible officials in the findings themselves. Do you guys have any questions?
Is this a typical time of year to be presenting this report?
It's late. Yeah.
What would be
later
typical?
Typically, I think we're presenting it depending on, usually we're finished with it and everything's done in July. After that, it depends on when your guys' meetings are and just how we can work out that schedule. But usually it seems like the end of July, early August.
What delayed it this year?
A lot of it was the ability to get some information. The rest of it, there were some issues in regards to trying to figure out the encumbrance that happened from the encumbrance module in your guys' computer system versus the financial portion in the computer system as well. And I think that the individuals that were involved in needing to get us information had massive amounts of additional work that was happening due to additional needs from the city, from
Okay.
things that had arose that were not typical.
All right. Thank you.
So it's a software issue with the encumbrances,
On
which
the
means it's
encumbrance.
not rolling over.
There, yes, and so I don't know the software at all. I just know that there's a lag in there, and so that was something that was going to be looked into.
But that, I mean, that's it.
I've started the conversation with Tyler Technologies, and they say it should be working correctly, but we're not seeing, when we put a purchase order in, we're not seeing those funds encumbered, seeing that expense hit. So we need to sit down and go through what's set up in our system that we need to correct so that they do show us they're supposed to.
So we are working on that.
Yep.
So was there purchases that were larger that we hadn't planned on in the budget, or?
In the water and sewer fund, I did not realize that the transfer between the water sewer fund and the general fund, those salaries to be reimbursed, had not been booked completely. So I didn't get that booked during the months that I was the city clerk. So at the end of the year, that's the majority of that dollar amount that we were off, because we revised the budget. I thought we were good. And then we go through the audit, and I realized those entries didn't get booked. So that was my fault on the water and sewer fund. For the airport fund, it's a good problem to have. We purchased more fuel than we had expected to in those last 2 months after we revised the budget. So that's some fuel purchases that pushed us over.
Okay. There was a comment somewhere in the narrative of the audit about a purchase order procedure that the software had, and I guess it hasn't been operational?
We are using purchase orders. It's when we enter a purchase order, we don't automatically see that expense hit for some reason until we actually pay the funds out. It's just kind of suspended. So I think it's something in the setup, and I'm working with Tyler to figure that out. And I have my treasurer making sure after the minutes of every meeting that the large purchases are actually getting put in as a purchase order so that it's in the system. Previously, it was in a huge spreadsheet, which made it a little bit hard to manage as well. So we are trying to make sure the system's set up right and that we are using the system so that we have all the information right where we need it.
The system is set up to do that. I don't know why it doesn't work.
I'm not sure why it's working.
All right.
So with the system problems that happened in 2015, how is that going to affect what's been going on for 9
2016?
months of 2016?
Well, that's where we're taking the corrective action and making sure that we go back in and get everything. If we need to be booking entries because we haven't seen those purchases hit the books, we'll have those entries booked. I mean, we're on top of it. We know that it's happening now, so we've got it.
When we were working through the budget, I think there was a couple funds, maybe it was water sewer, that there was a lot of concern about being extremely low, and we were going to have a problem
Right.
maybe in the next year or two.
Right.
Is this going to be okay this year? That, you know, I guess we can come up to a point of $650,000 is significant, and it was coming close to that. I think we were talking about the budget, and if it happened at the end of the year, it could be.
Well, if I understand your question, we were over budget, which means we spent more than we gave ourselves permission to spend. That doesn't mean that the fund was overdrawn. There was still cash in the fund. And that amount was included in the balance that was your beginning balance for the water sewer fund. Now, I did not have the final audit report when we were doing the budget, so I will have to go make sure that all of the balances are still what I thought they were. But yes, I mean, when we talked in the budget process, we know we're going to have to amend the budget. We're still waiting on that rate study to kind of see where we end up. We should be fine with the way that Terry modified some of his expenses at the end of this year. It's the end of next year when we're looking at those big projects that we have not yet figured out exactly how we're funding those, that we need to be concerned with not having the money in the fund to do it.
Okay, so it didn't affect us on our actual starting money that we had available.
Yeah, your starting
in
cash should be
2016.
Yeah, the starting
We were
cash
okay
was
there.
adjusted for the numbers that I had not accounted for. So that
Okay.
transfer, I made that transfer before I gave you a beginning cash number.
Okay.
So we should be good as far as the water sewer budget for this year, assuming that we stay on track for our
Yeah.
expenditures. It's just that we overspent last year for what we budgeted.
Yeah, because it seemed like, you know, this late into 2016, if we had started with our starting budget,
Yeah, to cut 600,000 now would be
265,000 higher
crazy.
and-
Yes.
yeah, that's
No, that was already accounted for in the beginning cash number that you had in your budget.
okay.
Does anybody else have any other questions?
I would like the opportunity to invite you back, possibly. I haven't spent enough time with this yet.
Sure. If
Be
you
okay
guys
with
have
that
any
if-
questions,
yeah.
please let us know. And
I'll be
if we
willing
need to
to.
come back and address that, we'd be happy to.
That'd be great.
So thank you guys for allowing us to do the audit for you, and we are always available at the office. Our phone number's on the front of that binder if you'd like to give us a call if you have questions that come up. And we're also available for technical assistance throughout the year if needed as well. It's just part of an additional service
Great.
for the audit. So thank you guys.
Thanks so much. Appreciate the help.
And maybe if they're going to update, we could get a report on what you find out about the software. Update
Absolutely.
us on
Yeah, that would be great.
how that works out.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Good point. Okay, item G, consider a conditional use permit for a daycare at 1318 West Hickory. Who's going to explain this one to us?
Well, this is typically Kelly's.
You are Kelly.
Yeah, I am Kelly. So I'll just go on to the screen here where city staff recommends granting this conditional use permit with the following conditions. The applicant must meet all the special conditions set forth in Section 103, 1 A, B, C, and D. I don't know if you need me to read through those. Kelly was not sure if she was going to be present here tonight. It doesn't appear that she is, but we did do all the notifications, sir, and she recommends that this be approved.
All right. Any
Is,
questions?
Provider here?
Apparently not.
Yeah.
She told Kelly she didn't know if she'd come or not.
Oh, okay.
I mean, she knew that we were going to recommend for approval from you guys. But.
This is typical, these requirements are typical of other daycares. that
Yes,
we've
yeah,
provided.
Kelly said this is the standard.
This is the standard.
Right,
yeah.
yeah,
Thought I'd read some of this before.
yep.
All right. Gentlemen, you ready to take action then? All right.
I'd make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit for the daycare at 1318 West Hickory.
I'll second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're adopting a resolution.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
Well,
You're adopting a resolution for
Then I need to redo my.
reword the motion. Is that what
reword
you're
the
saying,
motion.
Leonard?
Yes? Okay, make a motion then that we adopt a resolution for conditional use permit for the daycare at 1318 West Hickory.
I'll second the motion.
All right. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All right. Thank you, Leonard. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Item H, consider authorizing immediate removal of unsafe structures. First is 1028 East Edison.
Yes.
Hey, Don.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
So as you can see from this slide, I have some concerns about this building.
What are they?
Well, I was sneezing by it, and I was very worried.
Wow.
So
Looks like my first apartment.
we have been I did send a letter to the homeowner. We have been contacted by the homeowner. He would like to remove the outbuilding and the detached garage at his expense within the next 30 days. So we would like to give him an opportunity to come in and get a demolition permit and remove these two structures, the outbuilding and the detached garage. If he has not come in by the date of the next commission meeting, we would like to revisit at that time.
Okay. That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Leonard, you okay with
It's
that?
got, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that
gotta
was
go.
one of my questions, if the owners of these structures have been contacted.
Yeah, letters were sent
Be
to
a
all
lot.
of them, letting them know about the meeting tonight.
Okay, so no need to take action on this one.
And I don't believe that he was here. He said in his phone call that he didn't believe he was going to be here tonight.
Okay. Move on to the next one then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
404 South 11th.
Yes, there is some concerns about the detached garage there. The roof's falling in, and the walls are starting to come in, and so we would like to authorize its immediate removal.
Wow.
Have you talked to the owner?
A letter was sent to the owner. I have not heard from the owner, and I do not know if the owner is present tonight. But we do consider it a danger.
Is the owner's first name Kennan?
Yes.
I can get a phone number for him
Okay.
if you want to talk to him.
Yes.
I know the owner.
Yeah. Okay.
You want to put this one off and talk to him first, see if he'd like to take it down himself?
I think we should give the owner opportunity
To see if he's
Remove
going to
it.
remove it.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. That'll be great. All right. So we'll get him you'll get him called on, and we'll.
If I get that number from you,
Yeah, I'll get it to you tomorrow.
that'd be great, and I'll contact him and see what he's
Wonderful. Okay. Next is 1108 West Cedar.
This is another one that causes me a little bit of concern.
I can see that.
We would like to authorize its immediate removal.
So the roof has collapsed.
The roof has collapsed, and parts of the walls are starting to collapse.
Vegetation around it's holding it up, basically.
Yeah, and we're about ready to lose some of that vegetation with the changing of the season. So
Is it a masonry garage?
It was a dwelling at one point, I believe.
Is it masonry?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, there's stucco on the outside.
Any contact with the owner?
Sent a letter to the owner, no response.
This has been in poor condition for some time, I'm guessing.
Yes. I think we're getting to the point where I think we need to take some action before somebody goes in there and gets hurt.
It's hurt. Yeah.
Go ahead and declare it unsafe and move quickly. Is that what you're proposing?
Yes, that would be my preference.
Yeah, it's kind of scary. Any questions?
How long ago did you send the letter to the owner?
Letter was sent October 6th to notify him about the meeting tonight.
Is the owner local?
Yes. The address that we have for the owner is local.
But no contact. The owner's not here, right?
I do not believe the owner is present.
Okay.
You know, if it's a masonry structure, the walls are pretty sound. They're not going to fall. If it's plaster, that's different. But, you know, to only give an owner, 7 days to respond in mail and getting the letter, if they're out of town, that's pretty quick to go in with an emergency demolition.
I believe the structure's been this way for a while. I'm starting to get concerned about the roof and that children or other people playing inside of it, what might happen. I don't
Yeah, the
can't
roof's
speak for
already
the owner. I
collapsing.
don't know that there's been any interest in doing anything from it.
It might have happened a couple weeks ago.
It could be.
Fred, do you have any thoughts on this one?
I don't. I think we tear it down. I mean, owner's local, you said, correct?
Yes.
You want to bring this one back next time also and give him a chance to get in touch with the owner? Or?
I mean, we can, but it seems to me like we're just delaying the inevitable.
Yeah. Unless the owner was wanting to take it down himself, but it's been in this condition for some time.
And it didn't get that way
Right.
since October 6th.
I feel sure nobody's going to jump up and rehab this one. Well,
But we're for sure going to do the 1020 AD status.
If we're going to bring back the other two in 2 weeks, just give the owner a little more time to respond. Inevitable, it's got to come down, but, you know, to only have 7 days to respond,
yeah, I'd love to give the owner a chance to bring it down too,
Yeah.
in case they're willing to.
to save us some money.
Right.
We're not going to get it back.
No,
I mean, it does look dangerous, but I don't know the sense of urgency. I don't know that 2 more weeks would make much difference. Looks to me like it's been sitting that way for years.
Okay. We'll come back in 2 weeks, let you know if we've had any contact from the owner. If not, it would be my recommendation that we take that down as soon as possible if there's no response in the next 2 weeks.
That sounds good. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right.
So we need to make a motion for the 1028 East.
We're going to bring them all back
We're going to bring them all back?
in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Because the
That
owner's
way you
removing
package
it.
them?
The owner's
Okay.
removing it himself.
Okay, item I, consider establishing Central Business District Building Grant Guidelines. April Nutt.
Absolutely. At the Commission's request, we conducted a committee to discuss the downtown building, the grant that you had set aside for 2016 and 2017. Out of that first committee meeting, they wanted really the building owners to lead what they wanted the grant guidelines to be. So with that, we helped facilitate 4 meetings that were conducted with building owners in the Central Business District. There were 18% of the buildings represented at the meetings. Don Cushing, the building inspector, reviewed Ordinance 4218, the minimum maintenance standards for commercial properties in the Central Business District, with each attendee and answered questions. It was Great opportunity for Dawn to review with the building owners what would be expected come January 1st, 2017, when the ordinance went into effect. We had good discussion. All 4 groups were very energetic and participated and led the discussion. As we discussed before, one of the items that came out of that group that the commission approved was they wanted a structural engineer to come in and help review their buildings. We held our first group of inspections on October 7th. We had 9 buildings inspected that day. It was full. We had no more room for any additional buildings. All building owners were present at the inspections, and it appears from the comments made that each of them appreciated the opportunity. 8 of the buildings were in fairly good shape, with only 1 building having major structural issues that needed to be dealt with immediately. Several of the buildings had some significant cracks that the structural engineer demonstrated to the property owners how to monitor those cracks. And if they were to see movement, he recommended they review them every month. And if they were to receive significant movement, then the property owners probably needed to look at being more of an issue. He also explained the importance of those significant movements to the property owners. In addition, the engineer shared some additional measures that some of the property owners had taken already to stabilize their buildings, but they could maybe take it one step further to truly solidify the stabilization of their building. So they greatly appreciated that. And then we also have the structural engineer coming back on the 21st, and we have 10 buildings. We have a full schedule that day as well. So they requested, you responded, and they participated. So I thought it was a really good turnout for that. In addition, the purpose of the meeting, as stated, was to establish the grant guidelines for the Central Business District. The group led this. What we did was just facilitate it, and I've provided you all with a copy of what their recommendations were. I'll go through these quickly if you'd like. Properties must be in the Central Business District. All properties have to show proof of ownership, or all applicants have to show proof of ownership. All applicants must show proof that their taxes are currently paid. Applicants will be considered responsible for maintaining sufficient insurance coverage during the process. No more than 1 application can be open at a time. Ground floor of the building must be for commercial use. Grant funds will pay for 25% of the total project costs on approved expenses only. That doesn't mean that they can't choose to do a larger project, but this is a grant that's strictly for foundations, windows, roofs, the structural part of the grant. And so there would only be 25% of those costs eligible. All applications must be approved in writing by the Central Business District Commercial Building Grant Committee. All plans also must be approved by the Independence Historical Preservation and Resource Commission. All building codes, ordinances, and other applicable regulations for the Central Business District must be met. Those items that are eligible are footing and foundations, flooring or floor support, not floor coverings, load-bearing or structurally necessary walls, partitions, or other vertical supports, ceilings, roofs, and other or ceiling roof supports or other horizontal structures, exterior doors, exterior windows, roofs, and tuck pointing. Scope and timeline of work must be presented to the CDBG committee or CBG committee within 90 days of written notification of application approval. We're wanting to move this along so that it's not drug out.
April, can I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
How do you plan to parcel out the money? I mean, is it first come, first serve? Or?
That's part of what, yes. Okay. The intent of the committee would be if and when the commission approves this, there would be an open application period for 30 days, 1 month, and those applications would come in. I will tell you that part of the discussion, there was a great deal of discussion, whether we should just focus the funds on the most needed buildings. But then those people who take care of their buildings but have things that they know that they need to address was like, why am I being penalized for the fact of being a good steward of my building? And so they thought that they shouldn't be penalized for that. And that came out of a lot of the group discussion. So really what it was application period, kind of like what we do with other
Right.
grant programs. And we take those first groups in, see if they meet the eligibility requirements, see if that, how far those funds expend go,
Right.
and then we come back and go from there.
And so no limit, I didn't see on here.
No, there was
So-
not a recommendation. They felt like if if the city was investing 25% and they themselves were investing in 75%, that if it was a $100,000 project, then we were really stabilizing a building.
So the Central Business District Building Grant Committee, that's a composition of,
That'll be a committee that Mickey will put together
together.
to review these applications.
So one of the issues could be somebody could be a grant applicant and be on the committee.
No,
Okay.
no.
So it'd be structured so that would be a fluid committee based upon the grant.
It would have expertise on the committee. It would have, city staff, that type of thing. I'm sure Don, building inspector, would serve on the committee. So, that would be something for Mickey's, his thought process, who he thinks would be best to facilitate that.
I don't know that it would be a bad problem to have, but I think what I hear you saying is if one applicant wants to do a $500,000 project and they get their application in first, they could take all the money.
Well, it would be up to the committee to make that determination out of all of the applications. Nothing says that
Okay,
you
it's
have to
not
fully
first come,
fund.
first served.
Yeah,
Okay.
they would take those applications that come in on that 30-day period
Okay.
and look at them as most need. Look
got
at
you.
them through
Okay.
the parameters.
Okay. I thought you said it was maybe first come, first served. So
Well, being that, yeah,
anybody that applies in that window
Right.
is
Yeah.
going to get consideration.
So it says 25% of the project cost, total project cost on approved expenses, which would be limited to the footings and foundations.
correct.
And
Structural.
so that'll all be based upon an architecture's drawing.
Well,
It-
they'll follow city codes and all, and so there would be requirements for potential structural engineers, architects,
Whatever's required.
whatever would be required, correct?
I noticed on 11.4, you've got ceilings, roofs and/or ceiling roof supports, but under number 2, not floor coverings. So ceilings would be like installing new sheetrock on the ceiling, metal tin. What's the difference in that and a floor covering?
Well, it would
other
depend
than
on-
the direction of the plank. And it's not structural directed, which seems like the floor covering would be the same.
Yeah, as a ceiling.
Yeah, if you're
Well,
trying
this
to
is-
get the most
It's a
out
suspended
of
ceiling.
the money
Yeah, go ahead. Don can answer that.
for
It would
that.
be something that would be structural support for the ceiling, not ceiling finishes.
Okay, because it reads ceilings and then it goes in. That's what, my concern is what you addressed second, that it'd be a ceiling support, ceiling
Yeah.
joists, rafters,
Right.
but not new tin ceiling
If in the
or
opinion of an
suspended.
architect or an engineer, something, the ceiling would need to be fortified or strengthened, then that would certainly apply, but not any kind of ceiling finish.
Yeah, you might want to look at
Yeah, we might need
number
to adjust the
4
wording on that.
to check.
And this was
Yeah,
taken
so-
straight off of the maintenance
Yeah.
ordinance, so we probably need to look at that for an adjustment as well.
Yeah, I could see addressing a repair if you got sagging sheetrock or plaster that's loose hanging down in an ordinance, but where we're looking at maintaining and we want to have structurally sound buildings, it'd be much better to take our money to the structural issues to
And-
stabilize it than,
Yeah, Commissioner Flish, that's certainly the intent to help us with the structural integrity of the building.
yeah, I think it's going in the right direction.
Okay, we can make that adjustment to it, absolutely. So it clarifies it more. Okay. And then it goes through the timelines, and this will be a compliance period of 3 years. The commission is helping to invest in their buildings. They'll be required to retain the ownership of the building for 3 years, or if they sell it prior to, the grant will be forgiven in 1 month increments, 1/36.
Could you explain that again?
That means that the property owner, from the completion of the project, will be responsible for maintaining and keeping ownership of the property for 3 full years, for 36 months. And the grant will be forgiven on 1/36th. So each month, a portion of the
Okay.
grant will be forgiven.
So if they sell prior to the 3 years, then somebody owes
The city
money
back?
back.
Correct.
Okay.
Prorated.
The balance of the grant.
Yeah.
Correct. Whatever has not been forgiven.
Yeah, that was kind of a
Currently.
little confusing. That's what I talked to you this
Yeah.
afternoon about.
And that's just standard statements from other grants.
Yeah.
So, but we
Yeah.
can clarify it.
Yeah, I'm not a grant writer, so that's where it was
Gotcha. We can make it.
confusing to me. And I think if the more we can clarify in layman's terms, the smoother the transition.
Absolutely.
will be.
Because that's also the goal of this. As you see, this application is extremely short. As far as, so are the grant guidelines, extremely short and simple. The goal from hearing the commission and hearing the participants of the meetings, they want it very simple. Nothing, easy to understand. So anything that you can bring up that we can make that better, absolutely. I appreciate it. They should be responsible for safety conditions throughout. Applicants shall be responsible for all safety conditions in compliance with all federal, state, and local laws. All applicable building permits related will be required. Work completed prior to final application approval will not be eligible for funding. Any changes made to the original design presented to both committees will need to be approved prior to be considered in the grant eligibility. The applicant, their architects, contractors, and others will not seek to hold the City of Independence, its agents, employees, officers, or commissioners liable for any property damage, personal injury, or other loss related to the program. Applicant agrees to maintain the property and improvements, including but not limited to promptly removing graffiti, sweeping, and shoveling in front of the property. Applicant authorizes the City of Independence, Kansas, to promote an approved project during, after construction, and using photographs, descriptions of the project and materials and press releases. We'd like to be able to tout the success of the project. And as anything, this is a starting document. As we learn from how to do it better, we reserve the right to amend the grant guidelines. So that's pretty much the outline of the grant. I think that the commission needs to be commended for their efforts. The participants have been extremely pleased with the opportunity here, as you can tell by their participation.
Yeah, that's great news, I think. I'm very excited about it. Is this, are you trying to keep churches from participating specifically?
No, it's any
It
one
said,
of the
it said
120.
must be commercial use in number 6. Point number 6.
Oh, well, that was part of the thought process, I guess, because we didn't.
Because we have like 3
Well, it
buildings
says-
downtown now that are owned by churches, and it says must
Well,
be commercial use. I
that
don't know
would be
what
something that
exactly
we could-
number 6 meant.
The church would be a commercial use.
Would it?
By
Yeah.
code. By code.
It would be under an occupancy of assembly and business occupancy.
Well, so what
So-
would not be a commercial use?
Residential house, any housing.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Good.
The intent that it would not be residential, the intent it would not, stay vacant in the sense that it should have some sort of commercial use
Gotcha.
of it.
There'd be a great opportunity, though, to develop some upstairs apartments in some of those buildings. And
It was interesting. Through this, we took the opportunity while those building owners were there to share the upper story grant. And we have quite a bit of interest in that as well. So we've fielded a lot of questions and handed out applications. So just a few more tidbits that I think is of interest. We had the building owners downtown take a survey. I wish all 120 of them participated, but they didn't. But we had a good participation. Out of that, 30% of our downtown building owners have operated for more than 40 years.
Wow.
So, yeah, half of the downtown building owners that participated have been there for more than 20 years. So, yeah, I thought that was really neat. 83% of them felt like the building conditions were an issue for downtown. So they were pleased to see that there was some movement and some activity on this. 67 said they would like some additional education for building improvements. They greatly appreciated the engineer coming in and that opportunity. I will say that we have met with the Kansas Historical Preservation Group and the Historical Society and working on some other opportunities. So I think Don would agree that meeting went well. And there are 58% of them that are willing to participate in this grant program. So
a typical timeline would be,
the typical timeline, what we're looking at, if you approve this evening with the recommended amendments and adjustments to it, we would recommend going out, publicizing it. We've had really good feedback with letters and emails, trying to gather those all along the way when we visited with the property owners. Our recommendation would be to open application period for the month of November so that we could get the ball rolling. You've set aside funds for 2016. You've set aside funds for 2017. Kind of, strike while the iron's hot. You've got a good interest right now. We've had a lot of good feedback and participation. So that would be our recommendation. And at that point in time, we would look probably after the first of the year, start doing those first awards, hopefully. And then at that point in time, once an application is approved, the project should be completed in 18 months per the timeline.
Sounds great.
Yeah, I'd like to thank April for being the chair of that committee.
Yeah, thanks very much. It's exciting.
Well, Don's done a great job, and I have a new assistant administrator who has done a phenomenal job of surveying and statistics and all. So Kayla Schaubel needs to be commended as well for her efforts.
I'd like to state on the record that I'm not going to take advantage of this. I will be accused of it anyway, but I'm going to say that my wife and I will not apply for this money because that would be very self-serving in some people's eyes. So as much as I'd like to, we're going to hold off on this one.
You could chip in a little money to sweeten the pot.
Yeah. I got a nickel. All right, any other discussion or questions? All right, do I have a motion?
so those modifications we discussed should be fairly simple and minor.
Yeah.
What notes I took were you wanted on number 4 to more definitively say it's structural on the ceiling, not just ceiling improvements. And then for me to work on clarifying that 136 ratio. It's more of a layman's terms.
Yeah.
That's what notes I have. Are there any other additions or corrections?
No, I'm good with that.
But did you think need to clarify what commercial would be?
I think it's okay. I was the only one confused, so I think
Well,
probably.
I mean, the commercial, your point's a good one, though, because that commercial business district.
You want to say non-residential instead of commercial?
I can
Well,
do-
that's
That
what
would
I'm
be
wondering.
good.
That's
Okay.
what you're saying is, I wondered if maybe want to make it specific, but not too specific. But
The zoning code has a definition of commercial. I don't have it memorized, don't know what it is, but it may or may not include churches. Would you just tell her if you want churches included
Kelly?
or not? She'll make sure that it's worded as included.
yeah, get right on that
get
one.
back with
Get
you
right
on
on
that.
it.
Yeah.
I think non-residential might
Okay.
be fine if that's what we're trying to not fund.
That's the
as
goal.
residential.
Is that
Somebody's
Jeff? Does
residential.
that mean that non-res?
Like you said, we can change it as
Yeah.
we go if we need to.
You just don't want to fund a apartment house
Right.
downtown.
Right.
Note
That's
on the
for
main
commercial.
floor. You're
Yeah.
exactly correct.
Okay.
Okay, I made that amendment as well.
So did you make a motion?
I would make a motion to approve the guidelines as presented with the modifications as noted in, Jen, you got the notes, right? As noted with non-residential and payment back and ceilings, as noted.
Would you like that right?
Yeah, I want you to
Why
read
don't
that
you? It was a little hazy there.
I have a motion to establish the Central Business District Building Grant Guidelines as presented with the following modifications. On number 4, make sure that it's clear that it's structural for the ceiling. explanation of the 1:36 payment ratio, and to change the commercial distinction to a non-residential distinction.
Great.
I think that captures it.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. I'll second that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thanks, that's
Great
exciting.
work.
Absolutely.
That's
Yes.
really exciting.
All right. Oh, you're up next.
I'm up
I wondered why
next.
you were still there. All right.
I'm here to talk about another exciting opportunity. The Independence Housing Authority Board wishes to complete the final street in the Eisenhower subdivision. IHA has had several inquiries into completing the last street by both realtors and individuals. I'm really excited to announce that we have 2 applications already, and we've not just kind of word of mouth that this being considered. And I have a 3rd inquiry. She's supposed to be completing her application and bringing it back. What's most important about that is all 3 are kids who graduated from Independence and gone off to college and are coming home.
Oh, wow.
So
That's great.
Yeah, we're really excited about, we've got a great group of kids, young kids, professionals that are coming back home. And so these are 3 of them. That's exciting news.
And the utilities are already in place, right?
Correct.
Okay.
All the utilities are there. Actually, it's ready for us to go in and just start
building.
The construction. Another thing I'd like to talk about, and I know, even with the closing of Amazon and Mercy Hospital, we still have successes and growth here in Independence. In 2016, and it's interesting when you start trying to put things together. In 2016, Kansas Aviation, and these are either job projections for 2016 or they had job openings. Kansas Aviation projected 4 to 5. Hackney, 22 to 24. Amerifleet, which is a new subcontractor for Hackney, is getting ready to add 8 to 12. Textron is anticipating 40 relocations due to the caravan line here to Independence. Comfort Inn Suites is projecting 14 new employees. We have 2 local manufacturers, due to confidentiality, I can't share, but their projections are 30 jobs. I don't know what the numbers were with Wilson, Labette, CRMC, and St. John Clinics. Hopefully they absorbed a lot of our Mercy employees. I don't know if they brought new employees on board. We have 2017 announcements with Labette Health's emergency room, between 35 and 40 employees, their projections. And then we also have Montgomery County economic development activities that are taking place right now. And hopefully we'll have some other announcements in the near future. So we've had opportunities and jobs and growth, and it's been good for Independence. I also would like to probably bring up exactly what the first 3 streets have impacted the community. Bradley Court, we're projecting it to be a little over $1 million for construction costs. If it's consistent with our other 3 streets, we do this uniquely. We act as our own general contractor. We bid out small packages, roofers, plumbers. We do a plumbing package, electrical package, a roof, rough carpentry, fine carpentry. We break it up into numerous packages. That allows our local contractors and plumbers and electricians to bid on it. As I said, if we're consistent with our first 3 streets, 72% of our funds expended went to local Independence address contractors and suppliers. 16% went to Montgomery County contractors and suppliers, and only 12% went outside Montgomery County. So we were able to keep our funds local. We anticipate doing the same thing again. Matter of fact, we've spoken to working on getting those numbers for estimates from those that we've used in the past, and they're quite excited about the prospects again. If you look at the current 3 cul-de-sacs, that right now, the county appraised value is almost $2.6 million. So we added to the tax base. Estimated annual taxes for 2016 out of those was about $52,000. If we construct the final cul-de-sac, where our projections will be about $70,000 in increased tax base. So it's not huge, but it's an increase.
It's great. When did we do these other cul-de-sacs?
We started in the night of the Great Flood was our first group of move-ins.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great timing.
And basements held. It was awesome. I was stressed.
2007 then?
2007, and we finished the last cul-de-sac right at the end of 2010, beginning of 2011.
And how long did it take to sell them typically?
Many of them we had sold prior to finish
Just like you're seeing
Construction.
now, already people are applying.
Exactly.
So many of these were, those original houses were built on some income requirements. Are these income requirements the same? Are they higher?
They will be
Are they-
different. We're projecting for moderate income. Where we're following the state guidelines with their moderate income. That's who we'll be using.
What
Are their
is,
guideline limits?
what is the moderate income?
Memory. A little older. Let me see if I can pull the Rolodex up. I want to say for a family of 4, it's around 90,000 is what the moderate income is.
Wow.
So yes, it's definitely an increase in income.
Moderate to
is-
high.
Yeah. So the price range, I believe in the original homes was, I was trying to remember, was it 110 to like 125, 130,000?
We
Are
had
these-
the original price of those homes ran from 90 to 130,000. These will run from about 110 to 150,000, just with the increase in costs.
So this will be a like 3-bedroom, 2-bath.
We have 4 home designs. We have one that is 3-bedroom, 2-bath, slab on grade. We have one that's 2-bedroom, 2-bath, slab on grade. We have 2 other designs that are 3-bedroom, 2-bath with unfinished basements. And so those have been quite appealing.
2-bedroom, 2-bath.
Well, we have one design that's 2-bedroom, 2-bath, but the ones with the basements are 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And they're plumbed for an additional bathroom downstairs. It's already there. The plumbing is inserted and ready to go. And they also have windows for egress if any additional bedrooms were wanting to be constructed in the basement. So they meet those requirements. So just out of those 21 homes, I think some other statistics that are interesting, 13 were first-time home buyers. So I thought that was a really good number. 10 of those homes were purchased by people who lived outside of Independence or the Southeast Kansas region. So we provided homes for people coming in due to jobs. 16 of the homes were financed with Independence banks, again, keeping it local. And 23 of the homes, or out of the 21 homes, 23 had children in them. There were 23 children in the homes. Let me put that right. Yeah, one home with 23 kids. Oops.
Busy home.
Yes.
Shaped like a shoe.
Exactly. The beauty of that is that it met our mission, and we were successful in doing what we had hoped to do, provide housing for a workforce, and it did. Just a quick other statistic. I'm full of statistics. That's what I've got Kayla for. There's 5,979 employees in the city of Independence. Interestingly enough, due to the stats provided to us, 58% of them do not live in 67301. So we have a huge amount of our employees that do not live in our zip code district.
Right.
So why?
I say, is there any information or breakdown on?
I'll be honest
What-
with you, we're working on that right now with our surveys. We've got several different surveys that we're putting out there, trying to get some of those answers. I think interestingly enough, we surveyed 5 of our major employers that have employees, and these are employers that have employees between 150 and 400 people. One of our employers informed us that only 15% of their employees live in Independence. One of our employers who have 300, and that's somebody who had 350 people. One of our employers who had 360 people, 40% live outside of Independence. And so the 3 remaining employee companies had 150 to 300 people employed. Fortunately, 70 to 80% of their employees lived within Independence. So, those are some things that we're realizing with our larger employers we need to work on. Why? Seems like our smaller employees live in Independence. That may be because they're mom and pop businesses or whatever, or, long history. But there's some things that we got out of our studies and surveys that are showing us that we need to work on getting some information as to why. Some quotes from some of the companies. All 5 companies said the availability of housing and the cost of housing was a challenge to hiring and retaining quality employees to work in their businesses. Four of the companies said that housing market independence had a substantial impact on the distance employees had to drive to work. All 5 companies indicated that housing market independence impacted their ability to attract employees from outside Independence. And 2 companies wrote a similar sentiment in the other comment, which was not enough housing options that don't require major remodel due to age of properties. So this is part of that housing assessment tool that we're working on, getting some information back from our local community members as well as our employers as to what we need to do about housing. That's the end of my statistics.
Great.
Yeah, it seems like moderate at 95,000 a year when, we've got the majority of the population much lower at poverty. We've got city employees making $11.24 an hour. No way they could qualify for that. But what are we? We don't want to put all our eggs in one basket of only reaching one
Demographic.
Yeah, and this is a hard decision. When you look, because we've got to look at providing houses. I heard the same thing, that there's people wanting to move in. They don't want the maintenance. We've got a niche that we've got to cover. That group coming in with, particularly Labette Health, some doctors, some professionals in that category. But we've got to look at other areas too. This is just one gamut.
Well, the challenge that you have is you've got to have that housing that's desirable for those professionals that want to live here, or they will go elsewhere. And that's what we are finding. Yeah. And now that's the maximum income. That doesn't mean they have to make 90.
Right.
If somebody's making 40 or 50,000 and they have a home to sell, or they've got equity or something, that doesn't preclude them from being eligible. That just is a maximum income that it can go up to. So, and we're just following the state guidelines.
Sure.
I think it's natural to go ahead and finish out this cul-de-sac. I can't imagine not. We've already got the utilities there, the street there. But I would like to consider next doing some other areas, maybe bring some blighted areas up to more current standards, some infill housing.
I will tell you, that's the long plan. Right now we've invested out of a study that was done. We have workforce needs. And so that's where the Eisenhower subdivision actually came out of that study. It was a long-term plan. Our plan is, yes, we want to finish what we've started. We also committed to the state that we would finish what we started because they also gave us infrastructure funds. And so the Housing Authority Board would like to finish this project before we go into, and they're actually looking at the next project is infill housing.
Yeah, I would think there'd be opportunities with the infill housing to supplement this to where there's 7 homes here, but there could be more. Those would qualify also for those moderate income grants or
right. It would just depend on
income.
how we establish the programs.
Because the utilities and infrastructure is already there, so the cost of building significantly.
Well, one thing about putting these houses here, it's going to, right now, there's no property tax being paid, even though with the structure, will they be exempt?
No.
5 years on property tax?
No, there will be no exemptions on these property taxes.
The initial ones had property tax exemption, did they?
Well, they did, and to be honest with you, I don't think that is in play anymore. I think that has sunset. Okay. There was a program that any new construction within the city limits of Independence, you received a your taxes were eligible to be reimbursed for the first 5 years. But I do not believe, I think that's been sunset.
Okay, so that's the good thing about the project. It is going to take untaxed property and put it on the tax roll, and the difference between a vacant lot tax and a structure is significant.
If the matching up to the other cul-de-sacs, we anticipate this one would bring a little around close to $18,000 with the finished construction. Not a great deal, but every little bit starts adding. But those are people who are paying ad valorem taxes, sales taxes. I'm sure some of them will have children in the school district. So, we're just trying to provide them those opportunities to live here in Independence rather than elsewhere.
So I was trying to remember the last time the city, their housing authority did these projects. Did you do all 7 houses at once, or did you divide it up?
Actually, the first go around, we did 4 homes. The second time we
That's what I
did
was
3,
thinking.
finishing out the first goal. This is actually be our 5th phase. And then we did 7 and 7. And now we're wanting to do 7 again. It's kind of one of those things. We started slow. We didn't know what the reception would be, starting with anything. That's why we bit off a small bite with the 4, and then 3 just finishing out. A lot of it was concerned with whether our local contractors could handle it, because that was important to the board and still is. So, but yes, we were able to go to 7. And of an interest note, full of interesting notes, when we bid our 3rd cul-de-sac, we bid it out. We had a general contractor who requested to bid it. And when they bid it versus we did it both ways. Our regular packages that we had done and allowed the general contractor. The general contractor came in $135,000 more.
That was because of the economies of scale with buying all the products at once.
Well,
Part of
no,
it.
his costs came in. The general contractor
his,
came in
okay.
$135,000 more, almost a full home, compared to us being able
I see
to
what
use
you're
our
saying,
small
yeah.
local contractors. So it was a good exercise for us to see the advantages of what we were doing.
Okay.
So
When your board voted on this, what was the vote?
unanimous, 5-0.
Just wondering. Thanks.
Actually, the board's the one who brought it up. This was not a staff directive.
Oh, really? You didn't twist their arms?
Yeah, this was the board who felt like it was time to finish it. They had had a lot of feedback and comments, and so it was a board directive driven to staff.
Great. All right. I don't think we need to discuss it anymore.
I'm ready to move. I think it's a good project. I think
Yeah.
we need to.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity,
forward.
and so does the Housing Authority.
So I'll move that we grant the Housing Authority permission. How do you want to phrase that? Permission to develop Bradley Court in the Eisenhower subdivision?
At the
Yeah.
cost of the Housing Authority to be no funds expended by the city.
I like that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Did you get that, Jen?
Yep.
That was a statement I forgot to make. I think it's probably important for you.
Yeah. Would you read it back, Jen?
Oh, go ahead.
After you've cleaned it up a little bit.
Second.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a motion and a second to grant permission to the Housing Authority to develop Bradley Court in the Eisenhower subdivision at the cost of the Housing Authority, no funds expended by the city.
All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, April. That's way exciting. Okay, item K, consider properties being sold at the tech sale.
This was just to bring the commissioners' attention to the fact that they're having a tax sale. A lot of the properties will be Country Village, where we have previously installed utilities, and we have specials, most of which are not being paid. The city's having to pay them. And just to let you know, if you had any interest, I wouldn't recommend purchase any property, but we just want to bring it to your attention. Some properties adjacent to some properties, and they're properties that we've got the utilities installed.
This was done many years ago.
Done many years ago, and the
Prior to your
county
being
made
here.
us aware of it, so we want to make the commissioners aware of it.
Any thoughts on that, gentlemen?
No.
I think it's a private developers
Yeah.
package that gives them the opportunity. Maybe they can pick up the property at a reasonable price and then help them get some housing in.
Yeah, that'd be great. Fred, you okay with letting that go? Okay. So we don't need any action on that one.
No.
All right, thank you, Mickey. Consider an ordinance authorizing disposal of abandoned or unclaimed property. Is this a Jerry conversation?
Yeah.
Jerry, if you were talking in the back room, I might have the chief of police come and tell you to quit talking.
I was actually trying to get Lisa to cool it and step out.
I bet. All right.
This ordinance is the sheriff's office has asked me to make progress towards getting a lot of the found property that is stored in one of their facilities. They need us to get it out of the way, and there's a group of individuals that have approached me about donating some of the bikes and stuff to a project. So that's what brought this on.
So we don't have any policy in place now.
I believe Mr. Chubb looked for state law and some other things that kind of guide us on this, and he developed this ordinance to fill in the gaps that we don't have any answers for.
Okay.
Quite a few years ago, this was a standard process of having auctioning to get rid of surplus equipment and material like this that had accumulated. So, I think it's much better to have it in resolution or an ordinance form to give us guidelines on a procedure and just to keep from warehousing a lot of products for years.
Yeah. Agreed. Any specific questions or thoughts on this ordinance? Any comments from you, Jeff?
I did call the state treasurer's office because they have an unclaimed property division, and they said they dealt only with safe deposit boxes and bank accounts. And this ordinance applies to items which are, I would call, non-evidentiary. In other words, they haven't been seized in conjunction with a criminal case, because there's another set of statutes that covers those. So this doesn't cover city-owned property. This covers property that's found its way into the custody of the police, like most of its bicycles.
Abandoned property that has no evidentiary value to the courts.
Gotcha.
So the provision in there by charitable donation to a charity, that would be the provision for like these bikes.
You can either auction it and the proceeds go to the general
Yeah.
fund, or if like say the police department, actually any department that could come to you and ask if they want to donate it, they need to get your permission before they donate it. We put that in there.
I think it makes great sense.
It does. Especially if it helps out. Get rid of some of that property, it creates more
Yeah.
space for more.
And I think it gives us an opportunity to give back to the community a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm okay with it.
All right. Anybody want to make a motion on this one?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the ordinance authorizing the disposal of abandoned and unclaimed property.
I'll second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thanks, Jerry.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Yeah, can we slip in item P here since
Yes, of
for
course.
Commissioner's action?
Item P. Thank you for reminding me. Just about to miss it.
This came up last minute. We received paperwork today. 815 West Main is going into foreclosure, and the city needs to file any liens against that property. This is a property that had a fire-damaged garage that we did an emergency removal on. City staff was involved with it. The cost to the city was $360. We have invoiced the owner, and they have not paid, and we would like to assess it against the property so that it's included in the foreclosure proceedings. If we can recover the costs, we'd like to.
And that's what this is for.
Yeah, so we just got the papers today. I apologize for the last-minute addition, but this is just assessing the $360 of city staff time to remove the fire-damaged garage back to the property. So when it does go through foreclosure, if there's any money available, we get ours.
Okay. Any questions, gentlemen?
No.
All right. I'll move that we approve ordinance number 4227 related to the demolition of a fire-damaged garage at 815 West Main.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Was that 3-0, Fred?
Yes,
Okay.
aye.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So now we move on to reports. M, report on sales tax.
Unfortunately, it's not a very exciting report. You can see that
No.
our numbers are still not quite what we'd like them to be.
Yep, still down.
Well, for 8 payments, we're basically down $21,000 is what we're down.
Yeah, that May payment really helped out.
Yeah.
You might start expanding your Christmas list now.
All right. Any,
Well, it could be confusing looking at the 696,000, thinking that's what we're down, but we're not. It's,
No.
you got 4 months left to receive payments on, so.
yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts on that? Questions? Okay. Move on to item N then. Update on city projects.
We've heard from the company doing our utility rate study that it's completed. They're reviewing it to present to us, so we should be getting that very soon. We've completed dispatch is now up and running. Zulaween, I think they had about 1,200 participants. And then on our cleanup day, we had a total of 217, counting the people that took advantage of the taking their brush. We are about 80% complete on the Basin 5. You've probably seen the roads being torn up, and they're actually reworking the roads. 9th Street, I think, was done today.
Is that part of the contract?
Yes.
Okay.
Penn and Laurel, we have a contractor that's going to do some things to the pavers so there won't be as a safety situation that we have going now. But we're going to bid it both now and in the spring so we can look and see which one will get the best prices on. And I think that's about all I have to update you on.
Vicki, that was going to be replaced with asphalt.
That Penn and Laurel?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we'll probably bid it with whatever is cheaper,
Either
asphalt
concrete.
or concrete.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on item N? Anyone?
No.
Okay.
No.
Item O, report on city board minutes. Any questions on that?
No.
Okay. Hearing none. Move on to commission comments. I have a couple things. We had training this past weekend in Overland Park for all the commissioners, and Mickey was there. One of the speakers I listened to talked about the importance and all the responsibilities of the municipal clerk's position and how critical it is and how difficult it is to learn all that. And they offer a class I think would be nice to offer if Jen is willing to give up a couple days in Wichita.
I reminded her about that.
Okay. I'll just give that to you because I will lose it. And the other thing I thought was interesting, this Certified Public Manager program, we've participated in this in the past, right?
Yes.
But has it been offered in Independence before?
Yes, we've had it here once.
Okay,
About
so
2 years ago, and we had several of our employees.
Yeah. Okay.
That was the first
So-
time it was offered in
Yeah,
Southeast
so they're doing
Kansas.
it again this next year in
That's gonna be
Southeast
great.
Kansas, which is a wonderful opportunity. I didn't know if we had people that would be appropriate to
We need to
extend that
Trying
invitation
to
to
get them
them.
to do that.
Okay. Leonard, any comments?
Well, at the trade show, I was visiting with one of the vendors that represented an energy company in western Kansas. And what caught my eye, they provided an audit for houses. They would go in and conduct an energy audit. They were both electric and gas. But with this, they would also then, the utility company would fund energy saving modifications to the house. And they would include it then on the utility bill. So immediately when the work was done, because of the savings of energy, the building owner received a benefit of reduced utility, but then after the period of the terms of the loan or the agreement, then it would drop what that cost. One of the things about the program, it stayed with the house. So if a landlord had a rental property audited and did the repairs, it stayed with that utility. So the renter would gain the benefits of saving, and as renters changed, it would still stay with that property. And it seemed like a good way to help some of the low-income houses that, if the energy companies, Westar and Atmos, could be approached to consider this for their customers, it could address, I think they were doing insulation, particularly HVAC. I'm not for sure about windows, but it would address that. Then, like Housing Authority could come in and provide maybe siding or roofs, something to help out and, work a similar program so that we could look at the lower income homes, particularly, if you can save on energy use every month, that's going to help the tenant or the occupant of the house. And it's amazing the difference in the efficiency rating of the new air conditioning condensers or furnaces provide. That when we went with central heating, I paid for the higher SEER rating, and it was amazing the difference between what we were paying with just fans compared to the actual cost. That high efficiency equipment paid for itself in a short period of time. So, that was one of the things that was really stood out of maybe we could bring that to our utility providers to see if we could work something out here locally.
Was that Black Hills group?
I think it was Midwest Energy.
Midwest Energy. Okay.
I got a flyer they gave me on, I think the program is House Smart or something like this. Right. And they said if the owner uses the audit to do the improvements, there's no charge. But if they decide not to, it was $150, $200 charge for the audit.
Yeah, it'd be worth checking into. It's a good program. I've heard a lot about that.
Yeah.
Anything else from the show? Or?
That was kind of the highlight, I thought.
Okay.
Well, and Frank White's presentation.
He was really good.
It was
great.
Remarkable. I think what impressed me is to see someone in his position go into politics, but go at a county level. And the things that he brought out, you could tell his desire was to reach the people, take their concerns to heart and act on it. And I thought that was one of the best keynote speakers that they had.
Yeah, his story about the courage it took to stand in against a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. But then it took more courage to stand in there against an 82-mile-an-hour curveball that was coming right at you and be able to stand in there and hit it. So I had a couple things, Gary. Number one of the sessions I went to, and I think you were there too, was internship program that's, I think, through KU. One of the things that we get squeezed with staff-wise is time, project-based opportunities, and I think those are summer project or summer internships. That might be something that we may be able to investigate, partner with KU. I'm not sure where there's other programs. I don't know if Pitt State or anybody else has. Do you know if they have a public administrator?
We're KU.
Okay.
Had some pretty impressive results.
I mean, some of the things that they were doing were outstanding, and it gives, obviously, the city benefits because, I could see us making it project-based or whatever you decided it would be, but the other thing that it does is it allows you to identify talent. What is the talent that's available within those programs, and how could we maybe attract some of that talent here? And then, well, that's one. And then where are we at with the contract with Burns & McDonnell?
We're going
I'm going to be talking about that in executive session.
Oh, okay. All right.
We will discuss that yet this evening.
Okay. That's it.
Something else, Amanda. The I heard the assistant city manager from Kansas City, Kansas speak at one of the events, and he said one of the biggest issues they're facing is they don't have a local newspaper. So we're way ahead of Kansas City in that. Yeah. All right, public concerns. I owe an apology to Mr. Hoyt Caston. Last time he was here, but I had a stack of them, and his got stuck to one of the others, and I did not even know he had requested a chance to speak. I'm so sorry, Hoyt. But you still only get 3 minutes.
Okay.
Don't expect to get 6. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I turned in a request which was inadvertently overlooked to speak at the commission meeting during which Debbie Downer and her disciple of doom culminated her years-long vindictive attack on Mickey Webb by turning in their potentially libelous petition demanding for him to be fired by the Independence City Commissioners. After years of their demonizing, fact-challenged quarter-page newspaper ads against him, the months of bullying door-to-door solicitations, and the hate-based rallies to gain signatures on their dubious document, all they could collect represented a meager, unrepresentative 15% of the city's population. Throughout their divisive process, this negative minority of biased complainants appointed themselves as the arresting officers, prosecuting attorneys, evidence-admitting judges, and the verdict-deciding jury demanding the immediate removal of Mickey Webb as city manager. This action is allegedly a culmination of a several years-long vendetta by Ms. Downer, triggered by Mickey's part in the city's decision not to close down an alley for her late mother's estate sale. That supposed slight grew into her knee-jerk opposition to almost every action or project he proposed. It started with his recommendation to buy the old Union Gas and KIND radio station building to save it as a possible from a possible planned destruction for a quarter-block parking lot and as a possible use for a city hall. As testament to his foresight, all of the purchase money, operating expenses, and missed taxes were more than recouped when the building was sold and became fully occupied with businesses, including the welcome home of CRMC Medical Clinic. Mickey was similarly castigated by his demonizers for taking action to evaluate the use of Mercy Hospital Building D as a possible location for a new city hall. When at the least 20-year-old mold problem suddenly reached medical requirements for the removal of all personnel, Mickey's foresight in managing city properties enabled the emergency move of the entire city hall operations to be accomplished in 2 days. By simply submitting their venom-soaked borderline libelous petition wasn't enough. No, the two gloomy pallbearers stood right here and made 3-minute outrageous, slanderous diatribes in which, without any factual basis, they tried to blame their inability to get more signatures because of the alleged fear that Mickey Webb would then have the city retaliate against the people who signed the petitions. And without any corroborating evidence, they falsely demeaned the reputation, not only of our city manager, but his highly skilled and dedicated staff and you commissioners. From the start, it was a disgraceful and city-dividing mission of a few disgruntled citizens and former staff employees. I ask that the commissioners dismiss the clearly invalid results of that unscientific polling of our city residents. Do your own objective evaluation.
Time's up.
Okay.
All right. Executive session. How much time do you guys think we're going to need for this? 15 minutes? Okay, it's 7 o'clock. It's 7:08.
What's the
Attorney-client
reason?
privilege.
Okay.
All right, so resume at 7:23.
And who else in the executive session?
Kelly? No, sorry. Mickey, Jeff, and the commissioners.
Okay. Do I
So
have a motion?
I make a motion we go into executive session for 15 minutes for attorney-client privilege purposes.
I'll second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
So, what action do you guys want to propose?
Well, the discussion about dealing with Burns and McDonald hasn't come. We haven't been able to come to agree on what the scope should be, so one of the things that we discussed when we went through this whole process was to be able to, if we couldn't reach an agreement with one, we'd default to the next one. And as from my recollection, the next group to talk to was going to be the Triner group. I believe they were out of Lawrence. Cough. Lawrence. And
I know it pained you to say that word.
so, anyway, Leonard, you have the same cough too, don't you?
What?
You have that same cough too, don't
Yeah.
Well, whatever.
you? Anyway, so I would like to, I think we should do what we said we were going to do and default.
So end negotiations with Burns and
Yes.
McDonnell.
Yes.
And begin negotiations on a contract with Trainer.
With Trainer to see if that scope, we can agree upon the scope that we discussed during our interview sessions
Yeah.
with, and it's on video, so it's not hard to
Right.
determine what that was.
So direct our attorney then to
Yes.
begin negotiating the contract or finalizing the contract
Have-
with Trainer.
Well, we
Have
should
cities-
have Trainer probably come and visit. I don't know if we're at the contract stage. We need to define some scope of services. With the fee structure, Burns and McDonnell, of course, it seemed to be growing from where we anticipated.
Right.
But, if Trainer is still interested in working with us, I think it'd be good to have them come to a meeting and we could project to make sure that the fee they quoted was going to be in the direction we wanted to go.
Do you think we need to ask them to come back down here to do that rather than just have Jeff talk to them or Mickey?
Jeff could talk to them and get some direction.
All the above.
But,
yeah.
I don't know if it depends what they're going to say for writing a contract. We don't want to get a contract out of context of what we're thinking about. And
How about if we just say then break off discussions with Burns and McDonnell and begin discussions with Trainer
yeah,
working toward that contract? Direct our city staff and city attorney.
I'm good with that.
Okay. Jen, how do you want to word that?
Well, I have a motion to authorize the city attorney and city staff to end negotiations with Burns and McDonnell and begin the process with Trainer.
Okay. Did I make it or?
I think you made it.
Okay. Can I have a second then?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All right. Great. Any other executive sessions tonight? Okay. In that case, I move we adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All right. Thanks, everyone. Great meeting.